All right, it looks like we're at the top of the hour. So welcome everybody to our March 2025 Get Well Wednesday, our monthly virtual gathering to learn more about great work our client community is doing, as well as, upcoming events or updates to share from Get Well. Today, we have our friends from UT Southwestern who are going to share how over time they organically formed a blue shirt patient educator team within their larger AV department. So with that, I'll go ahead and move on to introductions. I'm Misty Avery Wilson. I'm the Director of Clinical Services and also currently a Client Success Manager here at GetWell. I come from the client side, actually. I was an interpreter for 8 years, and then I was a program manager for GetWell for 6 years. And then I came over to GetWell, where I've been for the last 3.5 years. So I will pass it to Isabel to introduce herself.
Hi, and thank you everyone for joining. My name is Isabel Lempertz. I'm the Client Success Director with GetWell and have the honor and privilege to work with this wonderful UT Southwestern team. I've been with GetWell for going on 13 years, and I am super excited to introduce these gentlemen. So with that, Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, my name is Jim Turner. I'm the Assistant Director of Media Technology at UT Southwestern. I've been here 11 years, going on 12, and I come from a audiovisual background from the vendor side. Not necessarily within medical schools or hospitals, but just brought in for general AV work. George?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is George Washington. I'm the actual AV supervisor here at UT Southwestern. Just like Jim, I've been here for almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years this coming up May. And I also come from the vendor side of the AV background. So I have about 15 to almost 20 years of AV experience as a collective. So, and Misty, I'll throw it back to you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. So as Jim and George are talking about the work of their amazing AV team, I would encourage you to think about your facility or your unit and the support staff that you have that may interact with your patients more than you realize. You may not have an AV team, but you may be able to connect with volunteers, patient advocates, child life, Spanish interpreters, to help support some of the additional patient onboarding efforts, even if it's at a smaller scale. As I mentioned, I came from the client side, and one of my hospitals was a rural critical access facility, and they came up with a grassroots effort very similar to what you're going to hear them go through today with their guest relations specialist. And I got to say, even at that smaller scale, it was incredibly impactful, especially for the older patients who weren't comfortable with technology. It really allowed them to settle in and enjoy the system's features and the education to get that one-on-one attention. So with that, Jim, I will pass it to you to give us a little bit of background and kind of the inception of this blue shirt team.
Sure. So a couple, facts about UT Southwestern. We've been here for 80, 90 years. Started off as just a small medical school in an old Army barrack, honestly. And it has just grown since. On our campus, we not only have UT Southwestern, which is more of a specialty hospital, but we've also got our county hospital, which is Parkland. A lot of people know Parkland for negative things that happened in the 60s, but Parkland Hospital is on our campus, as well as our children's hospital. And we do share faculty amongst the three hospitals. But concerning UT Southwestern, we've, you can see all the facts here. We're licensed for more than 2,000 beds. We currently have over 900 active beds that utilize Get Well Network across 3 different buildings. One of those is a cancer center in Fort Worth. We are integrated with Epic for the education, medication, discharge planning, and some of the big ones is our patient to family video conferencing. And then obviously we have other opioid teachings and other education videos that have come in recently. So we'll do our next slide here. As you see this was Clements University Hospital as we opened in December 2014. This picture is probably more in 2015. This facility was about 450 inpatient beds. There's 2 towers, each is a V, and the 5th through the 12th floors are dedicated to inpatient rooms. Those V shapes are there for a reason. And it's kind of the huck is in the middle of each V and able to see down the hallways. So they can see all activity that are coming in and out of patient rooms. But it's also allowed for a quieter visit when you have just a single hallway and all the patients are on the window side. The hallways are very, very quiet, actually, even, when it's a ICU unit and you've got all kinds of equipment moving up and down. And also with the huck and the charge and the management all being in the center of that V, it's allowing for minimal steps to get from the center to the furthest patient room. So they really did a lot of work on designing this for ergonomical reasons as well as just, patient satisfaction. Next slide, please. Back in 2021, we expanded the hospital to add a third tower, basically another V. We moved some services from one of our older hospitals up to this third tower that includes neurosurge, epilepsy monitoring, behavioral health unit, which we do have in, mixed in with all the other isolated, but mixed in with all the other patient units, an additional ICU and med surge. Next slide. Here we can kind of see how we're lined up if anyone is interested. The blue W was the original CUH hospital, and the orange portion is what we added. So it's just kind of a little bit of a layout of what our units look like. The two at the bottom, those were added on the second and third floor for our neurosurge patients. So we did increase to 751 beds over the 4 years ago, and it happened right when everything else was happening in 2020. So that was quite interesting. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the blue shirts, as they were started off, these were technicians that we brought in 2014, right before we opened the original brand new Clements University Hospital, 460-ish beds. We brought some IT contractors in to basically post up in every unit, 1 or 2 contractors per unit, just to help with things like printers, PCs, label makers, televisions, anything that was new or modernized from our old hospital that we had moved over from. And we called them blue shirts. We issued every single one of them a blue polo, UT Southwestern logo, and we instructed all faculty, staff, if you have a problem, just look for the blue shirt and they'll be able to help you. As we grew into our space and became more familiar, the number of blue shirts that we needed started to dwindle. They weren't being requested for help with the staff or, in conference rooms, whatever it may be. But we did find them to be very valuable with our patient education. Going into each patient room and helping every single brand new patient learn how to use their TV, learn how to use a Zoom room technologies, or back then it was different, but our video conferencing technology, just to, say hi to a family member, accept a call from a doctor, work with rehabilitation or even translation services. And actually with translation services, Missy, I didn't know that's what you'd done previously. It came real helpful, especially those that were hearing impaired, to have the video conferencing on the TV and a camera looking back at the patient. So we decided to hire them full-time. Instead of making them contractors, we just hired them full-time and they became our patient educators on the audiovisual team. So, and then we expanded it by 291 beds in 2021. We also expanded our team by 1 or 2 patient educators to help with the increased number of beds. What we found is they are integral to our patient satisfaction scores. As I tell many people that I don't work with, when they ask what I do and why it's important, our patients have 3 things to do when they're in our hospital. That's eat, sleep, and watch TV. That's it. That's all they can do. Now with smartphones, they also have a 4th option, I suppose, but not everyone really wants to be on their phone while laying in a bed. So Their roles do include visiting every brand new patient. George has worked out a report that they can run twice a day. He'll go over this later so that we catch every single patient that comes into the doors. They provide tip sheets, including channel guides, which George will go over in a little bit. They test every single piece of equipment while they're in the room. So not only are they checking the pillow speakers, it's also being mirrored on the television. They're checking the Zoom room in order to show the patient that they have this capability, but while they're showing them, they're also making sure it's working. They're checking the keyboards that we provide to the patients so they can browse the internet. So all this technology that can fail and create a ticket and then create a delay in getting it resolved is all taken care of right at the beginning. So all of this, reduces our amount of tickets that we get overnight or throughout the day, but it also increases our patient satisfaction because we know that it's all taken care of within the first hour or two of them arriving. Oh, they still also provide a lot of information to our faculty and staff, specifically about patients and their technology in the room. Next slide, please. This is our existing patient educator staff. We have a very diverse group of individuals that we're very proud of. We've got multiple languages covered for all of our patient population. We do have women's services and labor and delivery, postpartum. We have ladies here that we prefer to send to visit those patients. It makes them a little bit more comfortable. Willie is the first one here. He's been here since day one. He was one of the original blue shirts contractors that we hired when we decided to go full-time with this. But what we have found over the last 10 years of doing this is hiring an audiovisual technician from experience or education isn't always the best patient educator. As George has told me in the past, I would rather hire someone with customer service or patient service skills and teach them how to work with the equipment. So next slide, please. So what we've learned is that this proactive education and testing does decrease our service requests and increases our patient satisfaction. The workflow that the patient educators use is constantly being refined, whether it's via Epic or the spreadsheets they use or how we divvy up the different units to the different educators. What we are trying to work on right now with our EMR department is how do we get all this stuff on tablets? So we're not using pen and paper and clipboards, but a real live, these are the new patients you have today tablet that is going to be updated second by second as they're moving through the hospital, not only with new patients that are arriving, but also who's already been visited. So we don't, go to a room twice. Next slide, please. I'll let George take over this one. This is something that he and his team has created.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate that, Jim. I'm sorry about that. So as Jim said, our patient educators, we actually run a report to see all of our new admission patients that come into the hospital. And so the slide that you're looking at right here, this is actually a two-sided slide, a two-sided piece of paper. It has our channel guide of all the channels, basic TV channels and music channels that we offer as a service. And on the back side of it, it's actually a tip sheet, overall tip sheet of how Jim mentioned our patient educators, when they visit the patients, they actually go in, they touch every feature of the options that we offer. And this is just like a quick reference guide to that system right there. And so previously we had about 113, 114 channels that were available with their standard channels and also the music channels. But we've currently updated our cable provider and our cable services. And so we're now at about 175 TV channels and music channels total. So this is just one of our older guides right here. We're working on making the guide a little better, but this is the one that I can show you guys right here. So if we can pop to the next slide right there.
Yeah, George, we actually had a question come in the chat. Who do you
Yeah.
use for your TV and music services?
We actually use Spectrum is our cable provider. Yes.
Awesome. And they do both?
Yes. Yes.
All right, fantastic. Hey, Philip, I see your question in there as well. I can share this with you if they don't mind.
Okay, so this slide right here, this is a closer look at the tip sheet that we actually offer on the other side of the channel guide also too. So our tip sheet is actually broken down into several sections. It'll show the entertainment part of the Get Well system that we offer to the patients, you know, the watch TV, the watch movies, how to do the video chat and everything. They're kind of broken down into tiles. So that's what one of the first sections is right there. The second section is we show the patients how to actually use the pillow speaker also too, and the function of the pillow speakers. We also have a section right here of how to actually start the video chat feature that Jim was mentioning about, so they can talk to loved ones, doctors, and you know, everyone that wants to talk to them that can't actually be physically in their presence. We have a section broken down for our wireless keyboard that we offer in each patient room also too. Each patient room has a wireless keyboard that's connected to our system also. So that's just a breakdown of how to use the wireless keyboard also. And the section right there where it says free movies, we actually offer a free movies for each patient also too. They update every quarter per se. And so they keep them pretty standard and pretty up to date. They break it down by different genres of movies. So we have a nice selection of, if a patient is just tired of watching, you know, regular TV, they have several options on the movies that they can actually select too.
One
And right,
clarification on that, these are the movies that are offered by Get Well. So
oh yeah,
this is what we're using for the movies. We don't
yeah.
have a separate provider. I don't think that's very viable nowadays with everyone having Netflix and Disney. So it is nice that Get Well has this.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that, Jim. And so at the bottom, right at the bottom of the tip sheet, also, we each one of our patient educators, they carry a WL3 phone that has an extension for a direct line to them. So, you know, it's pretty personable when our patient educators talk to the patients and, you know, they get to know them a little bit while they're instructing and showing them how to use it. And so, you know, like we said, some older patients, once they get comfortable with someone, that's who they want to reach out to if they have any issues or any problems of that nature. So each one of our patient educators has a WL3 with their actual extension direct line to them, where a patient can call or a nurse can call or a nurse manager can call if they have any issues in the room providing with the TV services. So,
If
all right.
I also may, George, one
Yeah,
of
yeah, go ahead.
the reasons that another reason that we have the individuals' names there is we have patients that we've been seeing for years that come in and out, whether it's BMT, solid organ, you know, any kind of chronic disease. And they know, like from 5 years, 6 years ago, they'll remember these technicians that have come and helped them. So they'll get there, and the first thing one of the first things after food and sleep is if I can get Willie up here to help me, or is Rena available this evening to come and teach me something? So, you know, that's one of the reasons why we'd like to include their names, because people know them by name. It's like going to your favorite diner. They just get to know the person who helps them every time. I saw some questions about different languages also, George. Didn't we have a Spanish version of this at one point?
Yes, we actually do have a Spanish version also too. So along with the tip sheets that our patient educators carry, they carry the standard English version right there, and they also carry the Spanish version also too. So if there is a patient that requires or prefers a Spanish version, we have everything in Spanish also too.
I think that there was some chat, it's just kind of popping up on the bottom of the screen, so I'm not seeing all the answers. The way that we got the Spanish version is we went to our translation services department and we asked if they could help us to get a translated copy of this for our patients.
And the other question, Jim and George, is are these laminated, or do you just leave, as you're orienting the patient, do you just leave the handout with them and
So
dispose once they get discharged?
So once the patient is discharged and the room is actually cleaned, the tip sheet is actually threw away. So each patient gets a brand new tip sheet when
Okay.
they're visited right there. So they get a brand new one, and that's another way for us to recognize that, oh, okay, so this patient has been seen before because I see the tip sheet on the, on the nightstand right there. So we want to make sure that we make that personal connection by giving them a new tip sheet every time a patient comes in.
And I love the fact that you have the specific teammates there and their extensions. I can only imagine how much time that saves both, your clinical staff, your nurses, as well as your support team for addressing issues. So,
Mhm.
all right. Yep,
Okay.
we will share this presentation.
And I'll be honest, I helped build this hospital and I thought I knew everybody. Every time I go over there, I have to introduce myself and they always want to know who I am. And if I said, well, I work with Brandon and Bonia, or, okay, yeah, you're fine. As long as you work with them, you're okay. So they know this team better than they know the leadership of the IT department. So
Yeah, and believe it or not, Jim, I get the same thing. I'm here at the hospital a lot, but I get the same thing.
yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I work with Brandon, Willie and Veronica. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we know them. They're real great. So you're good to go. So I get that a lot myself too. So
Yeah. So George, this one's you too?
yeah. So on this slide right here, like we had mentioned, our patient educators, they run a report twice a day to get the new admissions of the patients that come into the hospital. So this is just a brief summary of one of the scorecards that we built and kind of put together. So it shows a total, so column C and D. Column C and D right there, it shows the total number of patients that were admitted into the hospital that day, and also shows the number of patients that we seen that day. And so column E and F, it actually shows the patients that weren't visited. Column E is the ones that show that weren't visited, and column F actually shows patients that we didn't see for a specific reason. So a specific reason could be, those patients could be airborne precaution, or they could have sleep privileges where, they don't want anyone entering into the room between a certain time. Or the patient could be intubated. And if a patient's intubated, we can't train them or we can't talk to them as far as that part goes. So we have certain reasons why we can't visit the patients, but if there's like a nurse or a doctor that's doing rounding at the same time, our patient educators, they'll keep going on that floor. And before they leave, let's say the 9th floor, they'll circle back to catch the patients that they didn't see before moving on to the next floor. And so columns N, M, N, and O, those are just the percentages right there of the patients that we're seeing that day, kind of like our target percentage and the average of the percentages that we're seeing also for that week. Now, this week right here, in particular, we had a lot of admissions and we had a lot of people on vacation for this week. So I'm sorry I picked this slide, but this is just a real-time slide of, hey, we do have a lot of new admissions that come in, and we try to see every patient that we can. And sometimes we can't get to them as soon as they get in, but we'll get them the next day. So this is pretty much a real look at the numbers of how many admissions we actually get and how many patients we actually see throughout the week also too. So okay, so we got the next slide right here. And so this slide right here, it just kind of shows a overlay out of the schedule of our patient educators and also our additional AV techs that we have. So we have coverage at the hospital 7 days a week. Monday through Friday, we have coverage from 5:30 in the morning up until 11 o'clock at night. And on Saturday and Sunday, we have coverage from 9 a.m. to around 8 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. So we have full coverage of any kind of AV needs or any kind of AV services 7 days a week. And also we have a rotating on-call schedule that we have with our technicians also too. So even after 11 o'clock on a weekday and after 8 o'clock on the weekend, our technicians will get a page and we'll actually take care of any kind of AV needs that someone needs at that time also too. And the bottom part of this slide right here, this is what we call our ad hoc section. So as I mentioned previous, our patient educators, the phones that they carry, the W03 phones that they carry, they actually do get phone calls. And so we just kind of have them keep track of any kind of ongoing issues or any kind of unknown issues or any kind of requests that the patients may have. This is a section that they fill out after seeing the patients that are actually on their list for a daily visit. And so that's what I got with that one right there. So.
Well, thank you for that fantastic presentation. We have a minute or two for Q&A. These do go by so fast. If anybody wants to come off of mute and ask a question, feel free. Or if you want to put it in the chat, I will ask it for you.
George, I was just going to, I don't know if this was exactly covered in your deck there, but on average, how many calls are you getting on any given day?
So our ad hoc calls on average anywhere from 15 to 20 calls that our patient educators as a collective may get. And we do get additional requests for hooking up maybe Fire Sticks or Rokus, or, you know, just assisting patients with, hey, my phone isn't connected to the Wi-Fi. Can you guys help us out with that also too? Or my laptop isn't working. Can you help me out with that too? So we get a lot of calls that don't per se pertain to our system, but we still like to help the patients out also too, as much as we can. So.
Yeah, and I think that points to Jim's very first comment about patient satisfaction. You're there to create an experience, and you want to make sure that that is being followed through in every aspect, if you will. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I know y'all said that you've got some pretty noticeable improvements in like patient experience scores and overall satisfaction. Have you gotten any feedback from staff about how this has helped them or how they feel about this process?
I'll be honest with you. I think that we've provided a crutch to the staff. Our you know, any hospital, your staff is busy. They don't really have the time to stop and learn about the television system. Some of them may, and some of them may not need to learn. They may already know everything they need to know. But we have provided a lot of help to the staff in order that they could just, you know, call someone to help take care of the patient because they've got 14 other patients that they're taking care of. Or I don't know the number, to be honest, but you know, they have more important stuff to do. The staff knows and likes this team. They know that when one of these team members is coming, that something's going to be fixed or preemptively taken care of. And so that has created kind of a crutch. If we have our one technician who's supposed to be there on Sunday, if something happens and that technician can't make it, the amount of tickets that we get is just enormous because they've just gotten so used to problem with the TV, call the audiovisual team. And that, you know, it's good and bad, but mostly it's good. Once in a while, we have to call the nurse and say, look, all you got to do is reboot it, flip the switch, flip it back, and it'll be good, you know. So I think staff really do appreciate having them because we notice it when we don't have a patient educator on the floor.
All right. Well, we thank you all so much for that presentation. Obviously, it's been very well received in the chat. Everybody has really enjoyed this. So thank you so much for taking your time to walk through this with us. Just a few notes before we close. Invite everybody to the next Get Well Wednesday. So we will be focusing on the Get Well Connection Hub and how you can use that as kind of a one-stop shop for optimizing your system, you know, learning more about Get Well products, features, support, things like that. We have pediatric meal ordering coming up in May, and then the Get Well and Smart Hospital of the Future coming up in June. So you can scan the QR code to register. We will again send these slides out. We do have ambassador trainings coming up for you nurses. You can actually get 2 continuing education contact hours that way. We have one for commercial next week, and then we have one for government in April. So feel free to register for those, whether you're new or you know, coming back for a refresher. Federal Community of Practice for our government colleagues. So March 27th is the next session. You can click that link when I send this out to register or scan that QR code. And then finally, this is kind of hot off the press, our new hello@getwellnetwork.com support model. So I won't belabor this one too much because there'll be ongoing communication about this, but basically whether you have a support need or whether you have a configuration request, you can now send all of that to hello@getwellnetwork.com for a more streamlined approach. And then this next slide will walk you through kind of how that whole process works. So we are at the end of time. I appreciate everybody joining. You will get a survey after this. If you have any other questions, feel free to put them in that survey and I'll make sure to get in touch with your client success team to answer those. So bye, everybody. Thank you.